As a newly minted consultant, how did you go about finding your first work and first projects and clients? What was that like?
So I will say this: I had I went through a long process of kind of negotiating my way out of my job, frankly. And I mean, I really did have the benefit of having great relationships with my former employer. And as I left, the way I pitched my departure was I'd like to change my relationship with PSI. And what that resulted in is I have a 2-year consulting agreement. It's an IQC, so they can buy into my time, an indefinite quantities contract. And I've been able to do, again, some really cool work that it was the technical and really in my lane, in my areas of interest, to support them. Because one of the things I noticed in part of my decision-making process was that, and I think many of us in this room know this, that those of us who are technical and really into the technical stuff, I was spending more and more of my time writing proposals. And I think my value add is, and we spend a lot of time talking about value add, is really doing the technical. I love communication. I love health marketing. It's my background. And while I can give input onto the proposal from a technical perspective, I really like to get into it. So the transition has happened in that there's been more work that's had to be outsourced. And so that was part of my pitch. So there's some things that are on your plate that you can no longer do technically. Can I do that for you as a consultant? And I'm adding more value to you by being able to do that and writing fewer proposals. Well, you still have to write the proposals to get this work, but that was part of the discussion. And then I think there was a longer period of time of managing my contacts before I knew that I was leaving. And I really had planned the departure about 18 months because you've got to get financially ready and talking to other folks. It was just kind of managing those contacts, having the introductory conversations, but also looking at what were the opportunities at my current employer, because I do believe it's not necessarily either or. You can manage your life and it's worked out so far. Again, 8 months down the line, but that was part of my process.
That's great. And Giselle, so how do you go about finding your clients? You mentioned you're writing a lot of proposals. How did you get started, and how does that compare to your process now?
Okay. Well, actually, I don't write a lot of proposals. I write very few. I only write proposals that a potential client has asked me to write. This is in part because I've been in business for a long time now, since 2001. It's also because the type of work I do in strategic communications is broad and sometimes and can be any number of things. It is unlike someone who may have very specific technical expertise of the sort that some of the other panelists can hire. This person is a technical expert at sexual reproduction education, or certain. I really am more of a top-level advisor, manager, and certainly I'm capable of performing myself, if push comes to shove, any task that needs to be completed that I have outlined in a plan. Although clearly, if it's photography, I'd like to have my professional photographer working with me rather than myself, but beyond that. So I get most of my business from networking and referrals. I always have. When I first went out, I was very busy from colleagues and friends that I had worked with over the years. As time went on, in my case, a number of them I realized were older in recent years because they've retired, they've shifted out of, some of them completely out of the areas I work. And so one thing that I've had to do to remain successful and to bring in business is to be sure that I am constantly making new contacts and that I am relevant, provide relevant services for the needs of my client, and particularly in communications, as you know, with technology and how that has just been shifting very rapidly. So clearly, one of the skill sets that I come with is I am very technically capable, and I am very up to date on all the different types of solutions organizations are using to communicate with their target audiences. And I attend a lot of seminars and presentations about the latest tools, the latest case studies, and I do a lot of networking at those events. That's in fact my current largest client and a Nigeria-focused foundation, I met them at a DAI event in which they were one of the presenters, and talked to them afterwards about their communications. And this fits with, as I said, I don't do proposals very often. I don't answer requests for proposals that are put out publicly. I might answer one if it's been put out publicly if the hiring decision makers contact me and we have a conversation and they say, please. There's two reasons for this. Number one, I'm essentially a one-person shop. I do not have the time, resources, I cannot possibly afford to look at an RFP where I don't have connections and relationships with the organization and the group putting it out, and just throw my hat in the ring. I believe in some cases I've done it once or twice, and I've gotten one contract once. I got very close in another time, but it's just not the same as when someone knows or has been told by someone you've worked with that you really do know what you're doing. My work requires a tremendous amount of trust, because as one of the panelists was talking about, Lisa said, we don't always understand what is possible to do. I call that teaching my clients what they don't know they don't know. And so, again, that really speaks to referral and the opportunity for me to have a conversation about the advocacy and communication needs of my potential client. If I have a conversation, I am almost always asked to come back and share more. And if there is work that is relevant to my expertise, my experience is I have a very high chance of getting it, because the conversation enables me to show them that I can quickly digest and understand their challenges, and gives me the opportunity to present a variety of potential solutions, and hopefully some of those solutions really excite them. And of course they excite me. That's why I do what I do. And so just to give you one analogy of that, so with the client I got 8 months ago now, that I have just been signed up for a whole another year working with them. So I talked with them afterwards and just asked them about their communications, of course, whatever our expertise is. I presume that's how we sort of get into those conversations. They shared with me that they actually I didn't have a communications director, but they did feel they needed to start improving their communications. And they had a lot of writing projects, because they didn't know what all their communications could or should be. They did know they had to produce stuff for their website, for their annual reports, for various presentations, and they were program people, leaders, directors, so they felt really swamped. They could do it, but it was really a big weight on their workload. I said, well, of course I can help with that. I'd be pleased to do it. It could be a great introduction to everything they do and their work. But that typically, organizations hired me because they were seeking broad strategic advice and planning. She said, well, we're going to be putting out an RFP. I'd be happy to send it to you. My heart sank, because RFPs take a lot of time. I can spend a week on an RFP. And that's right. Well, and at my rates, that is many thousands of dollars, and of lost income. And so I said, well, if you very much wanted me to respond, I'd certainly consider it. I said, but you know what? For no cost at all, I'd be delighted to take you out for lunch and share with you all the insights I could provide over an hour or two at absolutely no charge. Because I know another conversation, high chance, they'll come back to me. They came back less than a week asking me to meet with them. I met with them for an hour and a half. The way I get my business is I ask a lot of questions. I need to understand what they know, what they don't know, and what their challenges are in ways that they usually do not understand themselves. While I'm asking those questions, it becomes a simultaneous opportunity for me to educate the potential client, because I'm providing occasional responses that illuminate those challenges and opportunities for them, that also fit with what I am interpreting to be their resources, their time frames. And so after that hour-and-a-half conversation, at the end of it, I said, now if I came back to you with a proposal that contained A, B, and C, do you feel that would be meeting your needs and would be fulfilling what you're seeking in a proposal? They said yes. I got back to them with a proposal a week later, and a week after that, they signed me up. And that actually is not dissimilar to the it goes in slightly different ways, but that is rather similar to how I get a lot of my business.